you remember this is the beginning of week 6, and what don't you have in week 6? Assignments, right? No work. So this is your chance to really work moving forward. Again, I just want to reiterate, take the time. If you haven't looked at this project, look at it. If you're set, you want to talk with me, call me. Make sure that you're comfortable when you go in. Remember, your soft landing ends when? The end of this term, or the end of this course. So Bridget is going to be somebody who's going to be expecting certain things. If they're not there, it won't be that I put your comments in the side and then you got a grade and we're told to change it. If you have not taken all of your feedback into account, do that before you leave this class, because your expectations are going to grow. She won't be out of, it's not going to be crazy, but I've been increasing my expectation with you all through this term. But this project, if this project doesn't come in as a solid project that you have allocated the time and effort for, then you're going to find yourself in a jam, because it's an important project. I also want to remind you, you need to take your first paper in this class and this leadership development plan and put them in a folder. They are the beginning of your work towards your comprehensive portfolio that occurs in the 4th term, okay? So everybody knows that, and we're all set, right? Okay, so I want to show you about Safeassign. Most people don't even know where it is. Most people don't even know what it does. It is a similarity index. Just because you have a similarity with another paper does not mean you've done anything wrong. If you have your citations or your references, those are legitimately going to be shared, because a lot of the resources I gave you, you're going to probably use in your papers, right? Well, there's 22 of you in your class. Of course, you guys are going to use some of the same stuff. So depending on who puts theirs in first determines where it's referenced. What I want you to understand is how to use this. I'm going to put up a PowerPoint within the next, say, 48 hours for you that's just to help you. But let's look at the critical things. What is it first? Well, where is it? Notice help, okay? You click on help. Notice it brings up, here's all this information. It says Blackboard Learn Help for Students. If we move it up, see where it says learn more about Safeassign? And here it is. You just click on it. Brings up assignments in Safeassign. Every paper you do in this program is going to go through Safeassign. It is our way of protecting you to make sure that things are just the way you intend. So this is going to tell you the Safeassign process. What it is it uses this algorithm, and it takes your paper when it's submitted and it looks at all the papers in its database. Safeassign has a weak database. It is used only by Blackboard users. It's not as robust as Turnitin. There are several that I've worked with: Vericite, Grammarly, Safeassign, and Turnitin. And of all 4 of them, the best is Turnitin. It's because I want you to be protected and I want you to know the truth. So here's the other thing. Once your paper gets put into Safeassign, Safeassign then kind of gloms onto it and takes it into its database. So that's how all of this process happens. So the database grows as work is submitted. So I'm using Safeassign because I want to make sure that by using Safeassign, you know what you're doing and where you can improve. It safeguards your work, and it creates what's called an Originality Report. I call this a Similarity Index. And what I want to show you is just a couple of things. First of all, this is what an Originality Report will do. When you submit, this is where the Safeassign report comes up. When you submit your paper, if you wait just a few minutes, and I mean literally, it's a few minutes, the report comes up, and then you click on it and you can open it up. When you open that report up, it says this, View Originality Report. The importance of this is it's the report based on your paper looking at that database. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. I allow you to have 4 attempts on every assignment. I do that purposefully so that you can look at your Safeassign, and if your Safeassign score is too high, you can take the report, you can learn from the report, see what the issues are, fix it, and resubmit it, and no harm, no foul. Now here's the thing, if you do that and give yourself a day, so I want to get you out of the last gasp of the day putting that in. How many people submit last gasp of the day? I know I've been there too, so I understand. I want to remind you that your Originality Report is incredibly important. Now, most of us, if it comes up late and it's 5 or 10 minutes late when you submit, shoot, we don't care. We're not going to have a fit. But if you have a problem with that report and you've waited till the last day, remember, points are to be deducted for late submissions. Now, what we're concerned with is this. Do you see this where it says the overall matching? What it does is it's going to give us an originality or a similarity score. This is the kind of thing that comes up in the paper. You get the report, and the report is going to show you a highlighted section like this. 68% match is most likely plagiarism. Here's the scores I want you to bear in your mind. If your score is 15% or less, you got no risk. Absolutely no risk. Now, it's very easy to get a 30% if you've got a lot of references, and we can remove those references by literally clicking on the highlighted area on the reference. And if you click on it where it says other students' paper, which will be on the right-hand side of the report, if you click on it, it removes that and it changes your score. If your score is purely from references, you'll see it and it will be very clear. You can play with it and remove it. If, however, you remove it and your score is still above a 30%, you are probably closing in on plagiarizing. Above 40%, and sometimes, unless it's a significant, like 10 references, and none of you have used 10 references in a paper. So if you're still ending up in the 40 to 50% range, you are most likely plagiarizing and don't even realize it. That's why the Safeassign report is there. Now, again, I want to tell you, if you're coming up with a 30 to 50% similarity index on Safeassign, you very well could be looking at 70% on a more robust examination. It is because of direct quotes. It's because you're not paying attention to the tenets of APA. APA gives you a single sentence per citation, unless you're doing a block quote. And if you do a block quote, it makes for a horrible, nasty read, because you have to, justify everything left-hand side, but indent. It's awkward, and it's most often not necessary. So you have to be more cautious, and you've got to trust yourself. This is not about throwing together all kinds of research. It's about validating your ideas. You should probably not have much more than 5 or 6 references in a 3-page paper. 5 is kind of high. Does everybody understand why? See how this says another student's paper over here on the right? If you clicked on this, this would eliminate. But if it says another student's paper and it's not a reference and it's in here, it means that somebody else put in precisely the same thing you did. And the question is, how? Now, you guys are all really honest people, but you need to know there are people who sell papers. There are literally websites that have entire papers you can buy for $20, $30, I don't even know how many dollars, but because I find them so offensive, I can't even go to look at the sites because they tick me off. However, this is a real problem, and that's where you get into trouble. So if you're working with another student, I'm never going to accuse you of something. I'm going to sit down and we're going to talk about it. But if you're working with another student, you have to be careful that you each do your own papers. You could have the same source, but coining a phrase, using it over and over can be a problem. Now, there's some phrases, like let's say you said entrepreneurial thinker, and you just thought of that. It wasn't a reference. You just thought of it. Because people talk about entrepreneurial thinkers, so you might think it's common knowledge. Technically, it's a phrase that comes from a peer-reviewed article. So if I saw it in a paper, I'm not going to hold you accountable for it. But these similarity indexes will, because it is the phrase. It's not a single word. The majority of it should be you. Okay. It just should be, your intention is to validate your ideas. So your ideas should be showcased in your papers. The ideas of others are to validate. When you're talking in a paper and you make a declarative sentence, all American consumers are confused between need and want. That is a declarative sentence. I have declared something, right? Now, when I do that, it's only my opinion unless I cite it. But I'm not going to go to another paper or a couple of articles, and based on that, I'm going to have an opinion. You have opinions about everything. Only when you read that article or that paper, it influenced you. Or you realize it is precisely what you thought, and here's somebody who shared it. That's what I want in your papers. Does that make sense? It's backing up your ideas. It's never meant to be the idea. Yours is the idea. We showcase your work, and this is all in here, so you can go right back and look at it. Low scores below 15%, medium between 15 and 40. Usually it includes extensive quoted or paraphrased material. So even paraphrased material could take you in there. But my experience has been direct quotes are literally the slippery slope that can do you in. The other thing is, if you make a mistake, we all get tired, and I know you often do work at night. If you cut and paste something and you don't pull the whole quote, it can come up as this weird limbo between a paraphrase and a direct quote. And it won't necessarily decrease your score, it could increase it. High scores, it's usually copied. And if you get a 40%, like I said, chances are there's other things that this database is not picking up. And I'm going to be working with our faculty to bring these to your attention. The first time things happen, nobody's going to blame you. Second time, we're going to use these as teaching opportunities. But if you keep going down this path, you're going to end up with a problem. So now is the best time to set up the best standards, okay? So that is all that I really want. If you want more help with Safeassign, you can certainly talk with me. Susan Jane is absolutely your APA guru, not just for APA Central, but for standards and the way to handle it. I want you to go back and look at your papers. Look at your papers. You still have access to them because we're still in this class. If you have any situation where you were over 15 or 20%, I probably said something like this. Please take the time to look at your Safeassign score. Now, it might have just been your references, but I send everybody back because I want you to understand this system. If you find that you've got a 50%, come see me, sit with me. We'll work it out. Nothing is going to be held against you. In future classes, what we do is we say, I notice you have a very high Safeassign score. As a result, I'm not going to grade this paper. And what will be done is a 75, which is failing, right? A 75 will be put in as a placeholder. It's not your final grade, but it will sit there until you correct the problem with the Safeassign report. Does that make sense to everybody? Not this class, but Bridget's class going forward. And that's just to set up a good standard. But still, you have the right to refocus and rewrite that paper. We will always let you rewrite. If, however, we see a pattern of disregard for this, the integrity of our program demands that we hold you accountable. So right now you're not held accountable. This is your chance to learn, but figure it out so that you know what we should do next. Those 4 resubmissions does not mean that you get to improve your score 4 times, but rather that you have a chance to correct whatever might be an issue with your paper. We do allow rewrites, but quite honestly, it probably won't be every paper. You will be allowed, like in most of the faculty, this is what they do. I let you rewrite anything this term. When you get to next class, Bridget will probably let you rewrite 1, maybe 2 papers. That's it. Because you should be improving and utilizing everything at your disposal. But that's also to ensure that you're improving. Now, if one of your problems is writing, we have put all kinds of resources available to you. Sadie, John Kanya, and we now have 3 peer reviewers, Sandi Coyne, Kyle Zachary, and Chris Blake. So we have 3 people in your class. And I can't say enough about how that might be the best way to go, because there's only so many hours that Sadie has. And I know it's hard to have someone look at your writing. I said this to Kyle the other day. I said, it's easier for people to talk about sex than it is to hand your writing over to someone to look at. And I understand that. But this is where you could change everything. So I truly suggest you consider using all the resources available. You can also set up an appointment with me, and I'm not that hard-hearted. I'm pretty determined and direct about how you write and how to help you improve.